Hello everyone, welcome back to Banking and Finance with Chitrak. We will be continuing with our AML and KYC chapters of the IIBF exam. Today in this video, we'll be discussing the third chapter of the module 1, that is anti-money laundering. The name of the chapter is Money Laundering Global Measure. So, what are the sections that we'll be discussing in this chapter? The first one is how the international organizations help to curb the anti-money laundering, that is how the international organizations are engaged. Then the initiatives taken by the United Nations. Then we'll learn about the IMF or the International Monetary Fund, FIU and the Financial Intelligence Units, and we'll know about a special kind of group called the Egmont group of Financial Intelligence Units. So let's start with the objectives of this chapter. What is the reason why we are learning this chapter? It is because we want to know the initiatives taken for dealing with the money laundering and the financing of terrorism by various international corporations. We will also get acquainted with the role of the financial intelligence units and how they help to curb this money laundering. So, the first point is engagement of the international organizations. Now, we know money laundering and terrorism are not just a country specific problem, but it's a major global problem, right? So, and these problems have engaged the attention of many major primary international organizations. They realize that there is a need for coordination of efforts to deal with these kind of problems, and as the problems are increasing day by day, it's also more important to be aware and be connected with all these issues. So, and the earliest initiative included the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe. They in 1980 stated that banks play a very important role as a preventive role, and cooperation from banks helps the judicial authorities and the police to reduce the criminal activities of money laundering and terrorism financing. So, also, the menace of the drug trafficking initially attracted attention from the United Nations and other international bodies. Then, other criminal activities were also included. So, at first, the international bodies were only concerned with the drug trafficking, but later they decided that the money laundering and other criminal activities also needed focus. Now, what are the initiatives taken by the United Nations? First, in 1988, the Vienna Convention took place. What happened is 1988, the United Nations Convention against the illicit traffic in narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances mandated the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, or UNDC, to establish a program for various countries to adopt measures to prevent drug trafficking. So, the key measures which they took was declaring drug trafficking and related offences as criminal offence. Okay, so in 1988, the drug trafficking and money laundering were first declared as a criminal offence. Then, forfeiture, transfer, or movement of property derived from such offences. So, if someone has gotten property from the money of drug trafficking or money laundering, then such property were forfeited or blacklisted from transferring or selling or anything else. Also, provision of mutual legal assistance, transfer of proceedings, and other forms of international cooperation was also included. So they also decided that all the countries who are members of this convention would cooperate among themselves to discuss about these money laundering activities and also to be aware of the properties which are bought using the illegal money. They also established a legal regime for the prevention of money laundering. In 1998, a political declaration took place. What is this? The UNDC's mandate was strengthened in 1998 by the political declaration and measures adopted by the General Assembly, which broadened the scope to cover all serious crimes, not just drug related offences. So, in 2000, the Palermo Convention took place. What is that? The United Nations adopted the International Convention against Transnational Organized Crime in Palermo. So, what are the provisions in this convention? Making the money laundering a criminal offense. So, in 2000, the money laundering was made a criminal offense, and in 1988, drug trafficking and related offenses were made as criminal offense. Also, to make detecting money laundering suspicious transaction reporting and customer identification and record keeping mandatory. So in 2000, the banks were mandated to detect money launderings, STR, customer identification, and to keep the records of the transactions. Also, in 2000 Palermo Convention, they called for cooperation and exchange of information among administrative, regulatory, law enforcement and other agencies at national and international levels. So they realized that not only the members but the law enforcement, administrative, other agencies of both the national and on international level should be cooperating and exchanging information to curb these increasing problem of money laundering and drug trafficking. Now we'll discuss about the International Monetary Fund or IMF. What they did was they became a partner in global initiatives for combating the money laundering and terrorism financing. Why? Because they had a universal membership and their surveillance function was good, and also they were a financial sector expertise. So it was natural for them to take a lead role for combating the money laundering and terrorism financing. So in 2000, they initiated the Offshore Financial Center Assessment Program. It was one of the program where they assessed their member countries with the FATF or Financial Action Task Force standards, and so they could understand how the money laundering and terrorism financing was combated in their member countries. They also provided the anti-money laundering and combating financing of terrorism technical assistance to its member countries, and they also contributed to develop the policy advice and technical assistance to implement the AML and safety regimes. Then we come to know about the FIU of the Financial Intelligence Units. Now, with the development of anti-money laundering techniques, including STR or suspicious transaction reports, there was need for an agency to receive, analyze and disseminate the financial information to combat the money laundering. I mean, the member countries was analyzing the suspicious transaction report and the different money laundering techniques were used, but they also needed someone to detect and analyze the level of threat from that specific transaction. So the Financial Intelligence Unit was developed. When it took place, it took place in the early 90s. What are the main objectives and for setting up these FIUs? Obviously, to allow law enforcement agencies to have access to relevant financial information. They enable the FIUs to analyze and provide information to law enforcement agencies. Also, to facilitate the reporting of suspicious financial transactions to central agencies for assessment and processing. In 2003, during the review of its 40 recommendations, the FATF included the recommendations on the establishment and functioning of FIUs. So, who established these FIUs? FATF. While in 2003 reviewing its 40 recommendations, they focused on establishment and functioning of this financial intelligence unit. So the primary purpose of it was to collect the reports of transactions related to the money laundering and terrorism financing and analyze them and provide information to the law enforcement agencies. In 1996, the Egmont group gave a definition. What is this? A central national agency responsible for receiving, analyzing and disseminating to competent authorities disclosures of financial information concerning suspected proceeds of crime or required by national legislation to combat the money laundering. So basically there are 4 FIU models. What are these? Judicial model, law enforcement model, administrative model and hybrid model. Now, judicial model was established within the judicial branch and suspicious financial activity investigated by an investigative agency. The law enforcement model was within the law enforcement agencies and it focuses on basically money laundering offenses. The administrative model was a centralized independent body and it acts as a link between the financial sector and the law enforcement authorities. Then a hybrid model was a disclosure intermediary and it served as a bridge for both the judicial and the law enforcement authorities. So basically the judicial model was an investigative agency and the law enforcement model focused on the money laundering offenses. Then the administrative model and hybrid model both basically acts as a bridge between the judicial and the law enforcement model. Now, what is this Egmont group of financial intelligence units? It is basically an informal network of the FIUs and it was initiated to recognize the importance of international cooperation. I mean, if every country detected money laundering on their own, it was not helpful, because a person who used to steal money in India can go to Europe or Vietnam or any other country and do the same there. So it was important for all the countries to communicate, and that's why the Egmont group was developed. And it followed the FATF 2012 standards. Its objective was to promote the development of FIUs, foster cooperation, information exchange, training and sharing of expertise. They have published the operational guidance for FIUs, the Egmont Charter and the Egmont Principles for Information Exchange. As of March 2022, it has now 167 members. So, what are the groups in the Egmont group? First, the heads of the financial intelligence units, or the HOFIU. It is the main governing body and they meet annually. Then there is the Egmont committee or EC group, which coordinates the HOFIU, and working groups assist the Egmont groups. Then obviously the working groups, and this is divided into 4 groups with specific topics. What are those? Information Exchange Working Group, or IEWG, Membership, Support and Compliance Working Group, or MSCWG, Policy and Procedures for Working Group, or PPWG, and Technical Assistance and Training Working Group, or TATWG. Obviously, as you have known or as you have understood from the name itself, the IEWG is for exchanging information, MSCWG is for support and compliance of the membership, PPWG is for making policies and procedures, and TATWG is for training or technical assistance. Then there is regional groups, or RG, which helps the Egmont group to meet its objectives. The EGS, or Egmont Group Secretariat, is based in Canada and provides assistance to HOFIU, ECWG and RG. Then the Egmont Center of FIU Excellence, or ECOFEL, was created in April 2018 and it assists the financial intelligence units to strive for excellence. So that was the end of the chapter. I hope you guys liked it, and if you need the notes, link is provided in the comment box and description box. Fill up the form and you will get the notes in your mail. So thank you, and do like, share and subscribe and comment if you have any queries. All the best for your exam.